Good morning. It's Wednesday, June 11th. A multi-front war in the Middle East is now 614 days old. I'm your host, Jonathan Schanzer, coming at you live from Jerusalem. Welcome back to the today's guest is Eytan Cohen Yanarocak, an author and researcher at Tel Aviv University's Moshe Dayan Center, who is one of the world's foremost experts on Turkey. I invited him back for a second time on this program. He's a repeat offender, as we call him, to discuss Turkey, which has increasingly drawn my attention in recent days and weeks. We'll talk about why things have gone relatively quiet for Turkey in the headlines, but that may not be a sign of inactivity. Maybe Dr. Yanarocak will speak to us a bit about Israel too. Tune in for that conversation in just a few minutes. Welcome to the program. Hi, Eytan Cohen Yanarocak.
Thank you very much for having me, dear Jonathan.
Thank you. And sorry, I keep butchering your name. It's not easy, but I am working on my Turkish. I promise. I'm getting better.
Practice makes perfection. You're doing great.
Yes, exactly. Practice makes perfect. All right. I want to just ask, can we talk about Israeli politics for a minute? I mean, you live here, and maybe you can tell me if this country is going to elections. And if it is going to elections, why?
Okay, first of all, I would like to highlight that I'm an expert on Turkey, and now I'm going to answer this question as an Israeli ordinary citizen. I think, yes, we are marching to very important days. Unfortunately, our political system is suffering from this chronic instability. As you know, unfortunately, in Israel, it's like a national sport. We are going to elections every couple of years. But during this war, the coalition, really did its best in order to survive. But now, since the Haredi, the ultra-Orthodox religious parties, are insisting on not giving up on their demands regarding the enlistment law, which requires every Israeli citizen to serve in the Israeli Defense Forces. For those who are not familiar with the current situation, the ultra-Orthodox Haredis are not serving in the army if they are saying that they would like to, study the Bible in the religious schools. These are called yeshivas. But the problematic nature is not all the Haredim are studying the Bible. And some of them, despite the fact that they are not studying the Bible, they are not, recruited to the Israeli army. And this is an open, bleeding wound of the Israeli society because it is creating an equality. And if we are talking about a burden, and that burden unfortunately became heavier during this last, 2 years because of this, war that was imposed upon us. Israel did not initiate this war. This war started with Hamas's brutality against the Israeli citizens. They kidnapped our citizens. Also, still, unfortunately, our citizens are kept as hostages in the dungeons of Gaza, and this is making the things much more worse and much more complicated. So from the Israeli perspective, I'm a secular / traditionalist Jew who is living in Israel, born and raised in Turkey. I believe that every Israeli citizen should be enlisted to the army. We all have to serve for the IDF. We should pay taxes. We must do all of these obligations to safeguard our only state in the entire history. So I think this is, in my perspective, this is intolerable. If the current government will not be able to persuade the Haredim to share this burden, even in a symbolic manner, which would be understood as a kind of like a starting point. Maybe maybe today we will not have a revolution, but we have to internalize something. There is something very important happened here. Nothing will be the same again, not in Israel's foreign policy, but also in the Israeli domestic politics, this was a tectonic change, the October the 7th. So this cannot go as nothing happened. IDF needs more manpower, and if the Haredim will be able to provide us more manpower, so we have lots of reservist soldiers. And,
yeah, and I see where it's all going, and I think it's interesting, Chai, that the religious Zionists, right, the not ultra orthodox, but the as they call them, the kippah sruga, the knitted kippah wearing religious Israelis, many of whom are settlers, but many of whom live in other parts of Israel. They're also, I think, starting to express that same concern, and I do think that this is a societal shift that I think you're right. It's a change that's going to have to happen. Yeah. But let me ask you another general question.
Inevitable. This is inevitable.
I think so. I think so too. And by the way, I mean, I think there's going to be questions, obviously, about the Arab sector and in others as well. But you know what? One thing at a time. In the meantime, I do want to ask you also about where you think things are going in Gaza. I mean, I've made the argument that I think that the IDF has achieved most of its objectives when it comes to Hamas. Set aside the hostages for a moment. I know that's a gaping wound for Israelis. Yeah. I know it's a continued challenge. But from a military perspective, I mean, can we argue anymore that Hamas poses a real threat to Israel? I mean, I think this is sort of, I think this is what Donald Trump is now telling Bibi Netanyahu.
Okay. So first of all, despite the fact that you mentioned the hostages, that I have to put them aside, yes, now I will put them aside, but I just wanted to clarify that they are here, and I'm not ignoring this reality, okay? But if I'm focusing on this Gaza matter from the tactical and strategic perspective, yes, Israel managed to eliminate, the most important the most important figures of the Gaza's Hamas's terrorist leadership. Yes, we've done a fantastic job on that. Yes. However, I think, and the current government sees the current political situation in the world arena as a historical opportunity. We do not have a president like Donald Trump in every 5 years in the White House. Therefore, since we are already inside Gaza, and we have such a friendly president when you compare with other candidates of the potential Democratic candidates, right? So from the Israeli point of view, from the Israeli government's point of view, what I understand is the war must continue to dismantle Hamas's rocket launch ability. Only few days ago, they again launched these rockets to Ashkelon, to Ashdod, to Gaza envelope area. This ability should be eradicated, and until these people will be turned from a phase of launching rockets to throwing stones, in my opinion, this war should continue. This is a historical opportunity, and Israel should do its best to maximize its interests. From my perspective, my personal perspective, I'm not interested in occupying Gaza, to conquer Gaza, and to have the Gaza's land to annex it to the state of Israel. What I am interested in is I want to provide a more secure future for my daughter as a father. I don't want her to run to the shelters.
Yeah, and I think everybody understands that, and I think the big question right now is just how much longer can and should this go on, knowing that there's not much more that can be achieved without spilling more Israeli blood, spilling more Palestinian blood. I think these are the questions that are starting to come up, and that even Donald Trump, who's been a very good friend to Israel, apparently is asking those questions. But I don't know if that's going to be solved anytime soon. And I think that when we look at people like you in Israel that still support the war, and you come from not a religious perspective, not a you're a secular Israeli, an academic, and you still support the war. I think that speaks volumes, and I thank you for sharing your thoughts on this. I know this is not why I brought you on today, but here's why I did bring you on. I want to talk Turkey for a few minutes here.
Sure.
I want to talk about Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He's been a little quiet lately. He's not calling for war with Israel, but he is still a major patron of Hamas. And you probably saw that Treasury even sanctioned a charity in Turkey the other day, Philistine Vakfi. So what is happening here with Erdogan and Hamas?
Well, we are unfortunately seeing a very symbiotic relationship, an ideological relationship. Before the war, if we were all skeptical, and after the war, due to Erdogan's very clear statements, he's calling Hamas as a freedom fighters organization. From the Israeli perspective, of course, this is something not tolerable. This is not acceptable. And we are also seeing that also the Turkish Foreign Ministry, the minister himself, and the head of the Turkish intelligence agency, they are having routine meetings with their Hamas counterparts. And we are seeing a very close relationship in every opportunity. Turkey is trying to provide legitimacy to Hamas. And at the same time, on the same opportunity, they are also trying to delegitimize the state of Israel. Recently, they called Israel as a terrorist state, right after Greta's selfish ship incident. Right, the Turkish Foreign Ministry. This is their daily routine. Almost, you can log on to their website, and you can see how much condemnations they issue against the state of Israel, and compare it with the other states. You're going to find out that it's a daily routine of the Turkish Foreign Ministry. It's like a national sport there. So we are seeing that there is a very on every occasion they are trying to raise the voice of Hamas. The Turkish Directorate of Communications, which is functioning as a propaganda machine for Mr. Erdogan, headed by Fahrettin Altun. Recently, they organized an event to raise the voice of Palestine / Hamas. They used a map. They used a map of Israel as a map of Palestine. They put it as an exclamation mark. But luckily, it's very fascinating that they chose a map that included the Golan Heights as well. So I really much appreciate them for their sensitivity for Israel's territorial integrity.
So let me move to the Golan Heights, and we'll talk about Syria. But in the meantime, I think it's very clear that Turkey is not giving up its role as patron of the terrorist group that launched this war now that has taken us more than 600 days. But so let's just talk about Syria for a second before we let you go. Is Turkey still the main patron there? And if so, what does that mean for Israel? What is Israel thinking about as they watch Turkey gain more control and power just to its northern border?
I will provide you two important examples. Last April, the Turkish government decided to send a very clear message that Turkey will provide all necessary infrastructure, assistance for Syria to improve their connection to the internet. And on May, the Turkish Energy Ministry openly told that they are intending to provide natural gas and electricity to Syria. In the same month, in May, the Syrian government signed a deal with the Qatari UCC company. The value of this agreement was $7 billion to important Turkish companies called Cengiz and Kalyon, which are considered as close associates of Mr. Erdogan. They are also in this consortium. It means that the Turks are there in Syria with all their infrastructure and civilian projects. They are rebuilding the Syria. And also in terms of politics, they are providing any kind of legitimacy for the Syrian government. In their Antalya Diplomacy Forum, they invited El-Julani, Ahmed Ashara, the new Syrian president, to the city of Antalya. They introduced him to other statesmen there. This is very important. Also, they introduced him to the CEO of the Baykar, Baykar company, which is known as the manufacturer of the Bayraktar drones. This is creating a question mark. Long story short, Turkey is also in several occasions made it clear that they want to integrate new military bases in various locations in Syria. And Israel is seeing this as a red line because Israel does not want to see any Turkish deployment in the center of Syria or in southern Syria that would minimize or limit the Israeli capability in the Syrian airspace. Therefore, the two countries are tagging each other as potential threats. I think this is very unfortunate because at the end, both of the states never declared hostilities against each other. But now we have to stick what is going on in the power politics in the region. So long story short, when I'm looking at this map, I see that thanks to Azerbaijan, which is a very constructive player in the region, Israel and Turkey managed to open a new dialogue channel, a hotline. But this creation of this hotline does not mean necessarily that the two countries acknowledged and adopted their red lines. I think we are very far away from that particular place. The two countries are still, challenging each other on the Syrian territory, and we'll see what will happen. But if you allow me, I would like to add another important issue here. Last March, the Turkish Foreign Ministry, initiated a very important event in Jordan. They portrayed it as an initiative of Jordanians, but in reality, it is a Turkish initiative that originated in January. What happened in Jordan in March? The 5 countries, Turkey, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Jordan came together and they formed a new organization called the Neighbors of Syria. And they formed together an operational center for military purposes, command center, we can say, for these 5 countries. And when they are asked why are they doing this, they are saying that there is ISIS here. But I'm telling you, ISIS is a fig leaf. This is an initial attempt of creating of a Sunni Muslim alliance, a military alliance, a so-called Sunni Muslim NATO alliance in the Middle East. They are making their best also to pave the way of Egypt. At the end of the Eid al-Fitr celebrations, Erdogan also called Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the Egyptian president, and asked him to coordinate all of his moves in the Middle East. And as far as I know, Syria is also located in the Middle East. So if they will update each other on the same issues, then in the long run, it means that Turkey is also interested in including Egypt to that particular alliance, which means that it will besiege Israel. It will besiege Israel from the north to the south.
This is something that is not well known. I want to thank you for flagging it. We're going to need to leave it there, but I want to thank you, Eytan Cohen Yanarocak, for joining us today.
Thank you very much for this distinguished platform. I wish you all the best, and I hope to be your guest once again in the future.
We'll do it. We'll make it 3-peat. Thanks again.
Thank you.